Okay, I want reactions on how we're feeling after Italy have beaten Australia for the second time ever. Italy's first ever back-to-back wins over a rugby championship team.
That's incredible.
A huge result and a massive result for them. Wally, how are we feeling?
Wally doesn't look happy. Nah, mate, not happy. He's going to demonstrate in the style of Gonzalo Quesada how he feels.
One of the highlights of the game will be a moment of the year. Gonzalo Quesada kicking the wall in response to Carter Gordon's try.
Yeah.
Will, how are we feeling in response to that result?
Forza!
Yeah.
Forza AF, as the kids say. No, that was a brilliant result for Italy. Obviously, the thing is I can't help but cheer for Australia in the way they're playing. I can't help but enjoy watching them play. But again, as a fan of underdogs in this sport, Italy were brilliant.
Yeah.
And also, it's not just that they won the game, it's that they played the brand of rugby that we've wanted to see in them play in the Six Nations that they've occasionally done.
Yeah.
But they strung it together for, I won't quite say 80 minutes, but the best part of it, enough, let's say that, for them to win the game. And it was really exciting. Paolo Garbisi at 10, absolutely outstanding.
Yep.
Both with the boot, especially kicking for goal, was essentially what won them the game, was getting themselves into those positions where they could swing momentum by getting 3-pointers. And also, and something that I'm sure we'll come on to very quickly, in terms of the attacking shapes that he called, where Italy love going for this double boot shape that they constantly go, which is really quite brave because you're pulling the ball back quite far. It's lovely in the way that it puts so much trust in both Lewis Liner and Montana Ioane. I don't know why I gave him his full name there. Monty Ioane coming off their wings, and it gives them enough space to run in that they can get over the gain line and gives them one-on-ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought they were very, very good. And look, not a perfect performance, but like as close to that as we've maybe seen from this Italy team.
Yeah.
Right? That you compare it to the other big results they pulled. So Australia a few years ago, Wales a couple of times in the Six Nations, Scotland last year. I think this was the best performance of all of them. This was the most composed. This was the most together. This was them being grown up and adult, and we are used to being in the situation. All those other games, you felt a kind of pressure on them. You felt a kind of sense of, oh God, are we going to do it? This could be today. Today could be the day. And then when it was the day, they were then elated and over the moon. This game felt like, no, we're going to beat Australia.
Yeah.
And they were just calm and composed, and they went about everything they needed to do to achieve that goal. And then obviously they got to the end of it and they were delighted and they were over the moon just the same as they would have been otherwise. But like, it didn't feel like there was any panic. It didn't feel like there was any kind of like worry about losing the game, right? And how many times have we seen Italian teams, even this Italian team over the last 3 or 4 years since they've kind of come together, 5 years I guess now, go, okay, we're in a good position, and then they concede a try like that Carter Gordon one, right as they get back in the game, and suddenly they fall apart. Or they score the try to put them back ahead of 10 minutes ago, and then they give away a stupid penalty and they let up. Instead, right, they scored that try and they put in a great box kick to clear and put pressure on Australia.
Yeah.
And they continue putting this defensive pressure on the entire game.
Stephen Varney there was brilliant, wasn't he? He was so composed. You know, it's funny as well, because this game finished 26-19 to Italy, and so when watching this back for the second time, for some reason I had it in my head that it was 24-26. And so I spent the whole time just expecting Australia were going to score another try and it would look like Italy would implode and have a misconversion that would lose them the game or something. But no, and then so it kept surprising me even on second watch that Italy's defence was that good.
Italy's defence was
solid.
excellent.
Because it's not like Australia didn't have opportunities in the Italian 22. They obviously held them up just short of the try line, or over the try line, with about 10 minutes to go, which I guess was not, it's hard to call it a turning point, but you know what I mean? That was kind of the moment where Italy kind of looked at each other and went, lads, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
You know, because Australia threw a lot at them. And by that point, like, they'd subbed on Rob Valentini, who was so good from the bench and made such a difference. And yeah, it was just, Italy resisted so much, but never looked panicked. It never looked like it was just a case of, oh, we're holding up, we're clinging on for as long as we can. Like, I think if there were an extra 10 minutes on that game, Australia might have drawn it at a push, but I don't think they would have like gone and won in the convincing manner that, for instance, when Italy beat them in a couple of years ago, potentially if there was an extra 10 minutes on that, you would probably say Australia would break them down and get another couple of tries. It's hard to tell, and luckily rugby games are only 80 minutes, so you only need to be conditioned for 80 minutes. But my point is, Italy was so complete and, as you say, so calm, and also just like fit enough that they didn't look out on their feet.
Yeah, massively so. And I think you then add in the defence, and the defence was excellent. We've touched on a couple of times there. And just The thing I like about the defence, right, is it isn't the most aggressive in the world.
No.
And you had long passages where Australia would be winning the gain line. And they would be making yardage on each carry, making 1 yard or 2 yards, and yet they could never use that as a launch pad for the backs. And that's the thing that Australia build their attack on so much, is we get Valentini, we get Harry Wilson, we get Jeremy Williams, whoever else, like Angus Bell, crashing over the gain line, and then from there we play out and we have Carter Gordon or whoever else is in at 10, play these extremely lovely shapes that look, kind of very composed, and everyone's hitting their lines and running different angles and so on. And then it ends up with Max Jorgensen scoring down the wing. And obviously there was no Max Jorgensen this week, but we still found them getting very little space out wide because Italy's defence is so well connected. And it's not like a Springbok style where you have like one big threatening dude sprint up while everyone else covers in behind to cover for them. You don't have people rushing out. You have a line that comes out pretty old school, like up as one. Yeah. And up as one connected unit. And that relies on an awful lot of communication, an awful lot of trust. It means that you might not get the big gain line shots, you might not get the huge hits, and there's still 1 or 2 of them in the Italian side, right? But they were generally one-off hits. They weren't part of like the overall system of someone shooting out line or whatever. But it meant Australia couldn't find any space at all. Like every link in the chain is connected and overlapped. And it just led to Australia finding no space at all. And even when their game plan was going right, even when the first, if you broke it down into like a series of chapters of they need to get through, right? Even when the first 3 or 5 things were going right, the last 2 weren't working because Italy's defence was so well connected.
Yeah.
And just like that is the word. It was connected at all times.
And with that in mind, you mentioned Jorgensen there, also Tom Wright, really missed by Australia as somebody who can play out the back of a second pod. Yeah. Now, obviously, they had Hunter Paisami, who is brilliant at that. His playmaking is kind of the strength of his game as well as the whole bumfar of it all. But
and they're just doing dropping on the back heel and stuff.
And
all of his nonsense.
There's a lot of strengths to Hunter Paisami's game. He's an absolute baller. But when he's on the floor, or the other strength is, of course, similar to a lot of centres of his ilk, the likes of the Bundy Arkeys of the world and Sione Tublottis and so on. He is very good at, if the forward pod are shorter, man, he will just go, no worries, just hit me, I'll carry, I'll slot in wherever. And the difference between that and somebody like a Max Jorgensen, when Paisami is occupied elsewhere, he's doing a different role, having somebody like Jorgensen who can slot into the boot and get in the back of that. It was quite missed having somebody, and Tom Wright again, who's very good at that, wasn't playing, having somebody who can slot so effortlessly into that role, because it doesn't suit Joseph Akuto Suaalii, and he also was in the bin for a period of that. He likes to sit a bit wider and see if the defence can go somewhere else. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, if the defence is drawn somewhere else. 100%. So, that was a bit of a difficult one for Australia. I think that was part of why Italy contained them so well. Yeah. Whereas on the flip side for Italy, as I say, they love doing that double boot and having either Paolo Garbisi coming out the back of a pod of forwards or letting everybody just revolve around Garbisi himself. Yeah. And what I love about this is they play that in such narrow channels. So they start quite wide off 9, and then within that, the distance between the first man who's catching the ball, the guy on the hard line, and Paolo Garbisi as the 10 is really narrow. Yeah. And then off the back of that, they will set slightly wider, but still a little bit narrow, and they will use their wingers, including Capuozzo from fullback, coming out the back and running, kind of creating an extra wing within this little division that they've made here in the attack. And it was brilliant because it meant that they kept getting to places where, because they start narrow and then go to width, as a defence, you kind of have to go for a drift on. Yeah. You can't risk coming up full blitz on this or they will go through the middle of you, which means that they're not going to score off this, they're not going to make clean line breaks off this. They're going to make 10, 20 metres at a time.
That's it. It's a really, really smart tactic, and I think we might see more and more teams adopt this because it forces the opposition to go into a drift. Yeah. Like, you can't shoot up on it. If you shoot up on it, then any player can drop in a pass or a missed pass really simply, really fast and open up that space. So it forces you to drift and backtrack critically, which is how you defend the wing a lot of the time, right? Is you backtrack until you cut off the options.
Big time.
And most players will see space outside you and they'll crab towards it and you eat up the space and they run towards the best defender, who is, of course...
The touchline is real good.
Incorrect with David Pocock, still to this day. But yeah, they drift towards the touchline. They shut that down. You close it off. It's how you defend the wing. It's like wing defense 101, right? So every winger instinctively does that, but instead you end up backtracking, just giving them the yardage until it goes for it. Right? One of those times Capuozzo did get held up and turned over from that, but otherwise, in any other situation, if you've got Menoncello being the player taking in the end there, that's not going to be a problem. He can get to ground. Or even if you just start coaching Capuozzo, occasionally just get to deck. Just drop to your knees immediately the moment you are the guy taking it into
As
contact.
the lightest member of that back line, it's most likely to happen.
It's really smart. It's really smart. I want to see if they start to catch on. I want to see Italy play it more over the next few weeks because I'm really intrigued by this as a structure.
Yeah.
They ran it a few times during the game, and every time they made at least 50 metres off it.
And it's clearly what they were trying to do in the Six Nations, but now they've had a bit more time with it. It's clearly Quesada's not his baby because everybody runs similar shapes to this. But the details of the width of it.
This is different. It's almost like a sailing formation rather than like a rugby structure. Like, it's so old school that it's kind of beautiful and kind of feels brand new. I really, really like it.
Yeah.
And then Italy's attack had plenty of those lovely patterns. Paolo Garbisi calling plays consistently. They were almost always spot on. He loves that like massive loopy ball over the top.
He certainly
plenty
does.
of them. And then we have to talk about him, Monty Ioane.
So good, man. I mean, his try was a bit of an example in a different way of what we're on about in terms of Italy going narrow one phase and then stretching them on the next, meaning that they have to go for that drift defence. Because if they ran this on their own try line, it would be stupid because the defence would just fly up on them, they'd chop him, and there's a risk of breakdown threats or the ball coming loose or whatever. Whereas here, Ioane only has to make 5 metres and put the ball on the floor. And he's brilliant at that.
And you look at the lead up to it, right? And there's so many, we don't have to go into all of them because we don't have footage, right? But there were so many little passes. So many passes. Italy passed the ball consistently here, other than, you have the one example where Jeremy Williams gets bumfarred by Manicello. Moments later, he still hasn't got back up to his feet and retreated back. He's picked up an injury there. He ends up going off a moment later. He's hobbling back. Austria have left the wing for him to get back. He's still walking back, and bam, Varney picks and goes round the corner. Everything else, they keep building on this momentum after Varney's little snipe. But it's all passes. It's all lots and lots of passes. And so they look up. Ioane takes it at first receiver. He's got 2 guys on the outside, and they have got a bit of space there. You start, if you're Potter here, drifting, expecting the pass to come, you want to get into position whilst the ball's in the air to make the tackle and work them on the outside, force them out. And instead, Ioane goes himself. And suddenly, you're like what you're used to, how you're used to defending, is thrown off massively because there've been none of this in Italy's entire game. Apart from the odd carry by Ioane where they'd be bringing him as a strike runner and he'd then try and ease round someone or whatever, but never as a first receiver. Like Garbisi was never doing this. Breck's been stepping in at first receiver, never doing this. None of the forwards who were carrying up front were ever doing this. Like, it's a complete shift on how they've been attacking, and it works really nicely. It leads to Ioane going over for the try, which was incredibly well deserved because he was the best player on the pitch for me. He was nailed on player of the match.
Yeah, defensively brilliant. Even got stuck into the breakdown.
Yeah.
And every single time he got the ball, whether it was on kick return or them just passing it to him, he was making so much yardage. And it's really great seeing him put in performance like that now, because he's obviously gone off and played in the top 14, and Italy have brought through quite a lot of really good wingers since, like the Simone Jessies, the Lorenzo Parnis of the world. There's quite a few of them that have come through. Obviously, Lewis Liner played really well in this game. And the sheer passion on his face, obviously coming from Australia himself, being Australian-born, now Italian, and the celebrations from him, like when they got the turnover at the end from Lorenzo Canone, was absolutely amazing. We also ought to talk about Manuel Zuliani, who overnight has gone from being second choice for Michele Lamaro to possibly Italy's best player for the last 12 months.
You can have.
He's been incredible. In South Africa, he was the one player
he was
who
the best
really
player
stood up.
Yeah.
And in this game, once again, I mean, watching him versus Fraser McWright was so fun because the two of them, clearly their approach to the breakdown isn't like, you think of some of the geniuses of the breakdown, like David Pocock, you mentioned, Michael Hooper, Sam Warburton in our part of the world. These guys who really strategically weigh up which breakdowns they're going to hit. Neither of those guys are like that. They will just see a ball on the floor and just go, my dinner. I eat person and then I steal ball. And I love that. And the two of them just going head to head. I feel like they should be friends.
Felt a little bit like in a movie when a character runs into the doppelganger, who's exactly them. Like, hold on, white scrum cap, loves a turnover, is incredibly breaks it with the ball, but incredibly effective.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
So good.
Yeah, no, it was great fun watching the two of them against each other. And Zuliani, I thought, was outstanding as well, as he always is, and he has been for years. Tackle count incredibly high, but it's his work at the breakdown. Like, there was an absolutely textbook turnover he made, like the perfect tackle jackal technique of makes the tackle, rolls up, 1 second, bam, over the ball, thank you very much, it's mine, Italy clear from there. Like, really, really pleasing from an Italian point of view. Like, it felt like the big boy performance they've been needing, and having him in as a specialist jackal option really works. I'm curious what they do when Lamaro's back.
I think you've got to keep Zuliani in.
I think you do. I think you do.
It's his shirt now, and also he doesn't just jackal; he also slows ball down.
Yeah.
And against teams like Australia, or just teams they'll play in the Six Nations,
Yeah.
there is no such thing as a ruck that's not worth trying to slow down.
Yeah.
You know, and that's his approach: is he'll hit everything. Somebody else can pick and choose a bit more smartly in the team which breakdowns he hit. You don't want all three. You don't want three of them in your back row. But
Possibly a question for another day, but do you put him Lamro into 6 for his tackle count, for his work rate, for his work at the breakdown?
Potentially, but again, you've got
on your own
Lorenzo Canone,
Yeah.
and Ross Vincent
Had a good game.
superb.
Good game,
And again, he works as an extra back, and so it's so good having him run those hard lines off Gobisi.
Izacore in that 20 or 21 shirt feels fairly nailed in. Like, he's really good in that role. Federico Ruzza was outstanding off the bench. Like, the impact he brought, his intercept, obviously.
I was blowing the screen to see if I could make him go fast. Move. He really wanted to kick it as well. You could just tell. Because he's Federico Ruzza.
Picked up 2 turnovers as well. Convinced he's a centre. For one day, convinced he was a 7.
Yes.
And that was great fun.
Yes.
I thought he was superb. I thought Italy were great and enormously pleased by them. As I say, I think there've been a lot of performances where they put together stuff in attack, but they haven't necessarily backed up in defence. All games where they've played their heart out defensively, but they haven't found the points to go with it.
Yeah.
And them kicking their goals is something I wish everyone else would learn from, because I think everyone has swayed too far in the kind of post-Exeter Chiefs world of we play the metrics, we know we can wind people down, we kick for the corner, we wear them away and we eventually score 7.
They gave themselves a 6-point head start.
Yeah.
Like, if they gave away a penalty in the last 10 minutes of that game and they didn't have that 6-point head start, you're just looking at a kick from Tane Edmund to win the game.
Quietly, this game was won by them taking their chances.
Yeah.
It was won by goal kicking. And for most of the game, Australia had Andrew Kellaway kicking goals because Carter Gordon is not a very good goal kicker, and it wrecked his confidence. So we found out over the Eddie Jones era, right? Like, he doesn't want to be kicking goals.
Insane.
So you then end up in a situation where you essentially don't have a proper goal kicker. Like, you're having to go through your backs and go, which of you is the best kicker? I guess it's Andrew Kellaway. Has he ever been a regular goal kicker for any team ever? No. But we're going to have to put him into this game because we don't have another option. We're going to pick Carter Gordon at 10. And that is a huge problem when you've got the opposition 10 kicking 6 from 6.
Yeah, I completely understand. Not every there's such a thing as a fly half who isn't a great goal kicker.
Yeah.
But somebody who shirks the responsibility like that it's a major red flag because you can't rely at international
It became
level.
the thing about Roman Unterbach, right?
Yeah.
Is they took the goal kicking off him and gave it to primarily Ramo, but also we've seen Luku kick over him. You know, we've seen Blair Kinghorn kick over him at Toulouse level.
Malia.
And Malia, Dupont, and Kinghorn are not frontline kickers for any other team they play for.
No.
But Untermack is a bit of a confidence player, but everyone's forgotten that because if he isn't kicking goals, then he never has the confidence knocked.
Yeah.
You know, I remember talking about this in 2020. It's like, if he misses his first shot at goal, he suddenly becomes fallible. If he gets them all, then he is just a flawless rugby player, and they've just kept him as a flawless rugby player.
Yeah.
And I get that's the theory. It's like Joe Schmidt clearly, first game back, all the pressure's going to be on him. He didn't want the headline to be, Carter Gordon has a good game, but he misses all the penalties. The headline will be, Carter Gordon misses all his kicks.
Yeah.
And he didn't want that to be the pressure on him.
Remember,
I get that,
Untermack
but
stepped up in that semi-final against Munster in the penalty shootout that they had. You know, so he does kick goals. He just prefers Ramos to do it.
Yeah, and he was
because
always a
he's
goal
better
kicker.
than him.
It was just but it was a confidence thing. It was not one to knock Untermack's confidence. It was it's a tactical decision they made for the sake of the team.
But you can't just assume that somebody else will do that. And also, Andrew Kellaway is not a guy I personally have seen kicking goals before. Give it to Harry Wilson.
I think this is more of a coach's dilemma than it is a problem necessarily with Carter Gordon.
Sure.
And something he should be working on in the offseason, obviously. But it's a real issue. You can't afford to pick a team without a goal kicker.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what cost Australia the game. And I think more teams should be following Italy's lead and kicking more penalties. I think we had too far in the opposite direction. And I think actually there's quite a few teams, England being the loudest one of them, but Wales also being in that category, of teams who are set up to score points through the boot. If they are one of those, and wisely they are taking those chances. Yeah. And it shouldn't be surprised that Gonzalo Quesada is the guy leading the charge on this. It's let's kick more penalties, let's kick more free-pointers, considering his playing career. But where, for anyone that, unaware, top point scorer in the 99 World Cup was just the metronomic free-point kicker for his entire career. However, I just think there's there's a few question marks and there's a few kind of bits over Australia if you're not bringing a goal kicker with you. Because they outscored Italy 3-2. Right? That ultimately, they could have won this game.
When you look at how Italy won this game, if you were to explain it to a little kid, they would probably say this is the obvious way of playing rugby.
Yeah.
You play a brand of rugby that moves you 10 metres up the field at a time, rather than gambling on something that could make a line break, or it could lose you 20 yards if the opposition push you back, because you can only pass backwards in rugby. You move gradually up the field, and then when you're offered some points, you take them straight away.
And you defend by staying linked up rather than risking or knocking people back 5-10 metres.
It's the logical way of playing rugby, in theory. Obviously, there's so many more nuances to it, but for a team like Italy, that's brilliant.
It wasn't a surprise Italy won this game, Losing to Italy is no longer like a big note of shame. It shouldn't be for Australia.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be for anyone maybe other than South Africa and New Zealand, who are of a standard above. And apologies to any Wallaby fans who still, want to be thinking themselves in that category as they were years gone by.
I also want to think of you guys in that category.
Yeah. I also want to think of Wales in that category.
In good time. That'd be good.
No one was surprised ultimately that Italy won this too much, because they won last time these two teams played. But also, Italy still play like underdogs. And it really works for them. They play those kind of like slightly old school, slightly park the bussy tactics sometimes, whilst also having an attack that's completely opposite of that.
Yes.
So like this completely like rejuvenated, brilliant attack with a kicking game and a defence that are not that. And this is the thing that I think Quesada's added on top of what Kieran Crowley had built. Where Kieran Crowley built a team that was one thing, Quesada's added this kind of like bolted on, these nuts and bolts, these kind of basics that are really boosting this team's chances of winning games. And as you're seeing right here.
Yeah. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
The problem then becomes consistency.
Yeah.
Italy have to back this up.
Yeah.
It's not enough for them to just get one statement win. Because for years and years now, for decades at this point, we have seen Italy are capable of pulling off a win.
Yeah.
And from an Italian perspective, I really want to see them back this up. And I don't just mean Wales in the Six Nations. I mean another win in this autumn, and then beat somebody who isn't Wales in the next Six Nations. And at that point, they will be moving up in the world.
Yes, absolutely. We should talk about Australia a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a problem game for Australia?
I think it's a concern. It's a red flag that Australia have just dug themselves out of a hole, of last year when everyone was calling them a shit team.
Yeah.
And they've done enough this year to disprove that by winning in South Africa, getting a win against Argentina. There's all sorts. I mean, the Japan game wasn't vintage, and I don't know. It's just a real shame that it's a step backwards.
We talked before this tour about how the goal for Australia is to see the height of their performance.
Yeah.
And if they drop a game here or there, that doesn't matter. If they go and beat England or beat Ireland and they look great there. And I think you can't judge this tour on one game. I think you have to look at it in completion once we get to the end of it.
Agreed.
Because the thing is, international rugby is so tight now, and the Wallabies do not have the deepest squad in the world.
No.
They have certain positions with a lot of depth. They have certain positions where they can rotate a bit. But they have
a lot
some
where they are
players,
in the process of building that depth, for sure.
But they have some players who, when they aren't starting, you really notice their absence. Rob Valentini was one of those. When he came off the bench, he really made a difference.
Yeah, big time.
And, Will Skelton's missing here. Max Jorgensen's missing. There are plenty of, Noel Olaseo still. You're bringing back in a 10 who hasn't played rugby union in the years.
Huge. Jorgo,
so
Tom Wright.
You have so many of those players missing. And then you have a lot of players also who played an awful lot of rugby and start to look quite tired in the closing stage of that game.
Yeah.
Where the Italian players have played less rugby since their off-season. That kind of lines up differently.
Jake Gordon's done a lot of running in 2025.
He has. And I kind of think like a result like this was going to happen, and they must be shattered after the Lions tour and after they have played more rugby than possibly anyone else this year.
It's a very measured take on the Wallabies.
So I kind of think I get because they've only ever lost them once, I get the want to be emotional about this, but I kind of think these are going to happen because international rugby is so tight at the minute, right?
It's very true.
Like you have like 11 teams, 12 teams possibly, who can beat anyone can beat anyone. Then you've got Wales and Japan floating just beneath that, who like hypothetically could beat some of those teams on a good day. And you've just kind of got to take like every now and again these games will happen. Yeah. And it shouldn't be, oh God, let's reboot everything. It should be, okay, we move on to next week. Australia are of a level where they are slap bang in the middle. They are capable of beating Ireland. They're capable of beating New Zealand. They're capable of beating South Africa, as we've seen this year. They're also capable of losing to Italy. They're also capable of losing to Wales or Scotland. Yeah. Like they are slap bang in the middle of that. Them and Argentina. Argentina was slightly better, but like, it's tight. Australia on their worst day will lose to teams like this, and this wasn't their worst day. This was the opposition having a really good day and them having an all right day.
Agreed.
And them not having a goal kicker, which cost them majorly. And I think that is almost the biggest thing. It's like, if they have Noel Olaseo in there or whoever else, if they bring back Reece Hodge and put him in to kick goals.
James O'Connor's in the squad.
Yeah. Then, if you put James O'Connor on the wing, you know, like,
play anywhere that lad.
yeah, he kicks a few more of the goals.
I'm telling you,
I don't know.
let Harry Wilson kick the goals. He loves kicking the ball. Okay,
I know, admittedly, only one goal was actually missed in here, but like, it's the point, isn't it? It's
fact
like
you don't have the option.
You don't have the option. Yeah.
And again, that's something they can troubleshoot in
Yeah.
the future. Okay, one last question for you. How much of a bollocking do you think Lewis Liner got from his dad on Saturday night?
And now, well, this is probably why the youngest Liner has gone over to go and play for Australia as well, who's left like the Queen's Academy to go over and join up with, I think it's the Waratahs now, it might be the Brumbies he's signed for. I think that's it. I think there's like sheer fear of like, oh God, I can't do this to my dad.